All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. If I can have roll call, please.
Mr. Antoine is here. Ms. Bonnick?
Here.
Ms. Barrows?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Dr. Demas?
Here.
Ms. Riley?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
We can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion for tonight's agenda?
So move. Support.
Moved and supported. Are there any questions or concerns? I think if it would be okay with the board, we could move up board discussion and public comment before we go into closed session. That way, we're not voting on anything after closed session, so we could come back and you guys don't need to wait around. Would that be okay with the board?
That's fine.
That's
All
good.
right. All in favor of approving the agenda with those changes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Robinson for celebrations.
Yes, several tonight. So our first celebration comes from Amanda Moore Elementary, and the boots at Amanda Moore are tidy in the halls, thanks to some help from some workers from Woodside Bible Church. So you'll see there these wonderful wood organizers were put together, boot racks, and so the hallways are clear and ready, especially once the snow flies. So a big thank you to Woodside Bible Church, Romeo campus, and those individuals that helped build our boot racks to keep things organized at Amanda Moore. Hamilton Parsons, we got a couple of celebrations from Hampar. They have re-engaged their watchdog program, and this is well-known, reputable national program, Dads of Great Students. So there's, I think, a dad and a grandpa represented there. So Hampar's got this back up running. Just allows the opportunity to get some positive male role models into the building to just help with a variety of different activities. So they're back up and running with the watchdogs. Hampar is also excited to welcome back 113 Chinook salmon at HP. So the Salmon in Schools program, we know the process won't net 113 full-size salmon fry, but so the kids get excited, and then there's a plan every year to launch in early spring. That'll be at Wolcott Mill. And the entire school is invited to participate. That's, I think, an after-school, early evening thing. So a combination of leadership and the opportunity to bring people together. And then just a thank you to Andy Neeson, who, kind of supports the Green Team and provides this awesome opportunity for kids to get engaged both in and out of the classroom. One of my favorite celebrations, I heard about this secondhand, had a little live stream of this going on a couple weeks ago. So Mr. Essien is a good sport, and they had a fundraiser for their, to raise some money for their fifth grade end of the year promotion ceremony. And so at the recent bowling fundraiser, he actually allowed students, if we think of like the 50-50 and you buy nose to your toes or 10 tickets, well, you could buy some duct tape to help tape Mr. Essien to the wall. And 2.5 hours Mr. Essien was taped to the wall. So thanks for the support for the fifth grade promotion, and thanks to Mr. Essien for being a good sport. Indian Hills, third grade students made blankets, and so those were actually made for the students at Croswell. And the Indian Hills Parent Club put on an awesome Santa shop for the students, and we get a little bit of buddy program going there. The older students get paired up and help the younger ones. And then recently in our new STEM class, students worked on programming the Sphero robots to create their own version of the Thanksgiving parade. through the school hallways. So we know those Sphero robots are those little round robots. So pretty neat thing. You put it under a cup and hook a balloon to it, and it's almost like a parade float. So STEM in action there at Indian Hills. A thank you and celebration from Romeo High School. Thank you goes out to the Lions Club because of a generous donation and partnership. Along with the ingenuity of some of our students, Romeo High School will be adding 2 new sensory rooms to the school for some of the most deserving students. So what started out as an idea quickly became a cross-academy project to benefit students in the ASP program. So students from the business, education, architecture, design, and construction pathways collaborated and presented a proposal to the Romeo Lions Club. And earlier this week, a check for $10,000 from the Lions Club was presented to a group of students at Mr. Osbold at an evening meeting there. And so our students, this is really the Career Academies in action. Our students will see this project through from start to finish. We're also pulling in our broadcasting students to cover, a video kind of documentary of it from start to finish. So good to see that in action and using our students to help design that. We've had some unique industry tours going on recently with our students as we're re-engaging in the full scope of the Academy's work. So students from the DEM Academy, we actually had 2 trips going on in Detroit the same day, but Media Pathway students spent some time at Ford Field for an exciting day of sports media, work-based learning and training. And so students engaged in a variety of elements of sports media, and they had the opportunity to spend some time with Detroit sportscaster Dan Dickerson. So good trip for our students in the media broadcasting pathway. We have some folks, we were originally scheduled to do this last month, but we had a conflict with National Honor Society induction going on the same night. So we've got some members from our world-renowned cross-country program. We've talked a lot about them this fall, but the last time we spoke about them, we were sending some runners off to the state finals, and we're happy to report they represented us very well. The boys finished in 8th place, and our girls team this year finished as the Division I runners-up. So in all of that achievement, we have 4 all-state runners. I think all 4 of them are with us. So Mr. Buslip, you want to come up and bring those runners, and Mrs. Bonnick, you want to help recognize? And if you click that on, Mike, there you go.
Hi, Mike.
So announce and tell us what grade they're in and all that good stuff, and then Mrs.
Can we get a
Bonnick
group
will do
picture?
Yes, at the
Yeah.
end, we'll
Stay
get a
up there.
picture of all of you.
Yeah, first one we have is Vince Carissimo. So he's a junior. Next, we have sophomore Violet Rabowski. Called a notable. Next, we have senior Madison Clore. And next, we have freshman Emerson Clore. They're obviously sisters.
Coach, you want to get in there with them?
Oh, sure.
Don't be afraid. Thank you. Oh, okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So I often say cross-country is one of the best things we do here in Romeo, and it's always been a pleasure to watch the kids perform. So I want to thank Coach Buslip, because this type of success doesn't happen without a lot of time and energy, and he's got people working with middle school and elementary students. It's really quite a program, and when you see that in mass, 50, 60 elementary kids, you see the future. And so congratulations to these student athletes. And Madison, good luck. I know you're headed on to Western Michigan to run for the Broncos. And Emerson, the next couple of years, you can show your big sister what it's all about. So, all right, thank you to our runners and Coach Buslip for being here tonight. Well, there's a little bit of sadness in the room, but we do want to take the opportunity to recognize our two outgoing board members tonight. So I have a couple members of our cabinet team. We have a small token of our appreciation from myself and your fellow board members and Antoinette. So thank you for your 6 years of service on the Romeo Community Schools Board of Education.
I don't want to cut in front of you.
Yeah, you can cut in front. We appreciate all you've done for our staff, our district, and our families.
Thank you.
All right. I don't want to say there won't be any clicking of the heels on the way out tonight, but
I don't want to say I had less gray hair then either, but
yeah,
I did.
all right. So thank you, Jill and Kim. It's really been a pleasure, and we know you're not going anywhere, so you're welcome anytime. And that is our celebrations for tonight.
All right. Moving along to presentations, I believe we have our budget amendment. Vicki Lasky.
Okay. So we have a budget amendment tonight that I'd like to present to you because we have a couple of our original budget assumptions that have changed significantly since our original budget was adopted. So that's made some big changes, and we need to adopt a new budget based on those. So I want to look back at 2022, how we ended the year. So we ended our year with $1.69 million in change in fund balance. So we added to our fund balance for a total fund balance of $9.1 million or 14.74%. So that's how we started 2023 with that number. When we adopted our original budget in 2023, we expected revenue to be $65.5 million and our expenses to be $65.4 million. So we expect to add to our fund balance $159,958. But that's going to change. So some of the things that changed significantly from our budget assumptions is our original budget assumption was that we would have 5,225 FTEs, increase of 15 FTEs from the prior year. As of October of 22 count day, we had 5,346 FTEs, or full-time equivalents. I should explain what that is. That's an unaudited count, but that's what our fall count increased by for 2022. So when we base our revenues, it's based on a blended count. So our FTEs blended count will be 5,328.76 blended count. That's based on 90% of our fall 2022 count and 10% of our previous spring count. That's an increase of 118.76 FTEs, or $1,886,654, or over our budgeted projection of 103.76 FTEs, or almost $950,000. So that's a significant increase. We also had a difference in our state aid foundation allowance. When we adopted the budget originally, we expected a $400 per pupil increase from $8,700 to $9,100, and that total increase was $2,080,000. In our amended budget, we have the $450 per pupil increase that the state approved in their budget, going from $8,700 to $9,150. So that's a total increase of funding of $2.3 million. So that's another significant increase. Some other grant revenue that we've had increases in are CTE grant funding. I'm looking for my number here, $205,000. That's an increase over last year. So we were in the $600,000 range last year. Our at-risk funding is $1.3 million. I think last year was about $900,000, so that's a significant increase. And then our 31-0 social worker, they funded at 67% this year. We had 2 social workers hired under this program. We had carryover from last year, so we'll have 100% of those 2 funded this year. And then we have special education cost reimbursement increase of almost $660,000 this year. So I want to recap the ESSER funding a little bit. The total ESSER 1 funding, and then we can kind of put this one on the shelf because this is over with. The total grant was $325,957. In '21, we funded 2 staff positions, and in '22, we funded some summer school. So that grant is fully expended as of this point, as of the end of last year. ESSER 2 funding, we have a total grant of $2,332,856. ESSER 3, so that's broken into 2 pieces. ESSER 2 formula is $1.3 million. You can see our '22 expenditures, and then in '23, we expect to spend $619,000. We're using that to prevent multi-age classrooms, 5 positions, and this is year 2 of funding that. Our RVA supervisor, this is year 2 of funding that, and an additional social worker, other than the 31-0 funded social worker, and that's our second year in funding this also. And then our ESSER 2 funding, the equalization piece is a little over $1 million. In '21 and '22, we had some expenditures, so we had just a little bit left, so we're going to use that for our RVA mentor support to kind of wrap that piece of the grant up. So that will be done at the end of this year. And then ESSER 3 funding, our total grant is $5.6 million. That's also broken into 2 pieces, the ESSER 3 formula, which is almost $3 million. You can see we spent expenditures in 2022, and our 2023 expenditures are $1.1 million. We're spending that money on math interventionists, additional paraprofessional hours. We took some people from part-time to full-time. Additional social worker, that's the other piece of that previous social worker I talked about on the previous slide. Director of Teaching and Learning, a portion of that, and a school nurse. And then we'll have a balance going into '23-24 of $1.4 million. And then our ESSER 3 equalization, or 11T, is almost $2.7 million. We had expenditures in 2022, and we have some this year of over $1 million. Remember, this is for special populations of students, so it's not for all students. And this, we focused on our English language learning teachers, a portion of the counselors, math interventionists, summer school and after-school tutoring for that special populations of students. And then we'll have a balance going into 2023-24 of $1.1 million. So we have 2 funding sources next year for our ESSER grants. And then some other new grants that are coming in. These are in the budget. I'll tell you about the one that's not in there yet, but these are all going to be in the amendment. The 31AA, which is our student mental health, of $580,000. Our 97, improved student safety, of $580,000. Our 97.3C, I should say, comprehensive safety and security assessments, and our 97D, critical incident mapping. And then we're applying for the Michigan State Police Grant. I don't have that in the budget yet because we don't know exactly what our funding is going to be. That's an application process, so we've just completed that, and we should know pretty soon what that's. And we're going to use that to fund Officer Bauer at the middle school. And some of the changes of expenditures for 2023 between the original budget and today is the RASPA wage increases, in which that has been presented to the Finance Committee and to the board. 2 elementary teaching positions, and those were because of enrollment increases. A speech and language therapist, CTE teaching positions, benefits consultant services costs. Those were sent in the board and the Finance Committee minutes, so that the board has that information. Supplies increasing in the budget based on enrollment, and strategic planning. There's a few other little things, but that's the majority of the increases and changes in expenditures that we have since the original budget. So we expect at the end of the year to have revenue of $71.3 million, expenses of $70,284,000, for an increase in our fund balance, add to our fund balance of $1,093,026. So our fund equity at June 30th, 2023 is expected to be $10,261,875, or 14.6%. And then going forward, we're going to continue to look at our ESSER funding and make sure that everything's appropriate for what we need and what our students need. And then if there's any other significant changes, I'll bring a spring budget amendment to you before we have our final June one. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Just like to say thank you, and for those of you in the audience, that this is very new. If you were around 10 years ago, it was always how much money the state was taking away from us. So while it might seem like it's just a lot of new positions and, righting the ship of some of our salaries, that is very much by design. And what I always like to say, if the state gives us $9,000 to educate a student, we should try to spend $9,000, on that student. They're only in that grade that 1 year, that one time. So it doesn't do us any good to just keep putting it away for a rainy day. But we also have to balance that with having a rainy day for things that happen in a school district. So this is actually a very exciting budget amendment, and when we have a good audience. So I just hope you can maybe share our little goosebumps and excitement, because it hasn't always been that way. It's usually, what are we going to cut this time of year? So this is very nice, and Vicki does a great job keeping all the eyes and
And
T's.
adding to fund balance is intentional, because we do have when these ESSER funds are done, we need to
wanna
have
sustain.
a way to fund those positions or design our curriculum or whatever for using that money. So that it is designed to add to our fund balance for that case.
I think we're on to consent action.
We are. Can I have a motion for consent action?
So moved.
Moved by Riley, supported by Connor. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have informational updates and new business, communications.
So the only formal communication, we of course have received a couple of holiday cards from some of our different contractors and auditor and some of that, but just Mr. Connor did send
I was
a
just
communication today on a summary of the Fall School Boards Association Conference, so figured I'd mention that. But that's all from my office.
All right, moving on to committee reports.
Curriculum. Yep. So, you want Jennifer to start?
Yeah, are you two running that part, or do you want us to do that?
But the
Okay.
update, okay.
All right.
Okay, so curriculum committee had another great discussion. Board all has the minutes. I think they were sent out last week at this time, maybe. So a lot of action items tonight, renaming some courses, approving some new courses, so that's exciting. We do have, Jennifer, you've got an update for us on the media selection, utilization, and coordination process, because you spoke with the attorney today, right? And that's an update I'm not sure the board has yet. What else are the highlights? I'm trying to look through what the highlights are. Elementary updates, the teacher labs are going well. Mr. Murray reported out on that. November 2nd, professional learning was successful. Principals are also engaging in some professional learning. Again, this is stuff that I feel like we didn't have ability to do for a long time with COVID, with funds, so it's exciting that they're able to do that as well. Secondary updates, a lot of opportunities. We're still, encouraging middle school to develop opportunities for kids. They've got that great stage there, so they're doing some drama and choir performances and inviting parents in. I had a colleague at work who got to go see her son perform for his drama class. Very exciting. Excellent. We had an update on the Romeo Virtual Academy, which is increased. We've increased the number of students. So we're fulfilling a need that's been in the district for a while. That's good. Behavioral threat assessment team and processes, the curriculum committee discussed that, updated on that. And I think, Jennifer, I would just ask you to come and just give an overview of the media collection utilization coordination process in terms of just that.
That's in my
that update.
report.
Oh, it's in your
Oh, it's
report,
in your
okay.
report. Okay.
Gotcha. And I think that's it. Does anybody have questions on curriculum or anything to add? Chris, anything to add?
I just thought, I think we really, as a district, especially, it starts in subcommittee or it starts amongst the buildings to approach the idea of expanding classes or newer courses. So the ones that were mentioned in subcommittee, including like micro scale on history and some of the other courses, I found to be pretty interesting. And I love how each year we're constantly adapting to real world.
Excellent. Anything else? No? Okay.
Moving on to facilities. Mike, are you going to give that?
Yes, I am.
Good.
We had our Facilities Committee meeting last week, Monday, on the 5th. That was a full meeting, and then we had a follow-up meeting last week, Thursday, which was a short meeting to update us on some bond evaluations for a bid that came in, so that it could be on the agenda for this evening. We had a report from Mark Nelson from the Technology Department that he's in the process of, him and the consultant are in the process of bidding out the AV equipment for the Hamilton Parsons in Indian Hills, Croswell, Romeo Middle School cafeteria, elementary cafeteria AV systems, and so forth. They're also working on the two-way radio project, a district two-way radio project. That project is part of the My Deal project, which is a consortium-based bidding that's already bid for you. So there's no time or effort that has to be made on the district part to obtain. They've already done that work for you, so you can purchase based on their bid, which Romeo is planning to do. That project is going to be district-wide. The two-way radio project, it's a safety project. It's going to, we're going to fund it through the Section 97 School Safety Fund. We decided to also include the bus radios with that system because it is pretty old and it doesn't reach all the areas within our district. And I believe that money is coming from the general fund funding source for the bus radios. So that project is covered, and the anticipation is that that project will be done over the summer, I believe. So we're looking forward to having that in place. Other projects for technology, just uninterruptible power supplies, server and storage, and system upgrades, stuff that you need to do to keep current with the technology. The bus transportation building is in progress. They've laid the asphalt, just the first layer, and put striping down so the buses can use it this winter. We were reminded that there's a shortage in concrete too, so Bart Mallow's monitoring that as far as our project goes with that. Just a lot of stuff going on. Just a lot of stuff going on. And just.
We have Mr. Storm here tonight to speak to the resolution.
Oh, great. Yep. And so just, the other projects that are going on, and like I said, Mr. Storm's going to be talking about some. He did bring to our attention, though, that as the winter is approaching, that our district equipment for snow and ice removal is getting aged, and he's going to be looking at possible replacement of those items. So that's all I have.
All right. Any questions for facilities? And last, we have finance. Kim?
Yep, we met last week, I think it was. So during that meeting, we had a presentation, which I believe all the board members received a copy of that, from Gallagher Benefit Services to look at our health benefits that we are offering our employees. There's been a significant increase, a 9% medical coverage increase on that. And so we're looking at possibly maybe some different companies that could provide not only better benefits for our employees, but also would be cost-effective. Yes, exactly. So it was short, but it was a very thorough presentation, and all the members of the committee, we felt comfortable and confident that this would be the right way to go, the district to go. Because these people in the group, the Gallagher benefit, this is what they do. They analyze different programs or plans and could really benefit the district and the employees especially. And that is also a resolution for tonight for the board to vote on. And then we did talk about the RASPA paraprofessional wages, which that was part of our closed session before this meeting. And that also is part of the budget amendment, which we will be voting on this evening. We also discussed, or we had an update on the 297 Prospect property. Great Northern is going to start reaching out to some developers just to see if there's what kind of interest there is, especially with the economy and the interest rates that are going on right now, just to see what's going on out there. And then also to meet with the village administration to bring them up to date so that they're knowing what is going on with that transaction, that property. And then, of course, Vicki gave us a thorough presentation on the general budget amendment. That's coming up. We're also voting on that this evening. And then there was the technology bond audit, which went fine. There was no issues in that, and so that should be no problem with that. So, and that was about it. I just want to take a real quick moment, though. It was a pleasure serving on the subcommittee for the finances and working with Vicki. She just goes above and beyond her job. She's always prepared. And if you have any questions or you need any additional information, she's always ready and willing to provide that for you. So thank you. It was great working with you. And the district is very fortunate to have you working with them. So thank you.
Thank you for that. We will move on to the superintendent's report.
So before we move on, just reminder to the board and the public, we relook at subcommittees in January as an extension of our organizational meeting. So Mrs. Bonnick will be working, we've done a little work on that, so those schedules will come out once we get through the organizational meeting on January 9th. So a couple of updates, just mostly connected to our action items this evening, but also a little bit of a look ahead. So Mr. Storm, if you want to come on up, and Mr. Stobeck's here from Barton Mallow to help if we have questions or things that he can help with. But Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about just a quick check back in on tonight's resolutions, and then if there's any questions from the board.
Okay, good evening. As you see before you in your packets, we have a resolution tonight for the middle school cafeteria renovation and exterior door package. Myself and Vicki and our Barton Mallow construction team went through the process, open bids last week. We feel pretty pleased with the amount of bids that were turned in. A very competitive bidding process for this project. And then through the process of interviewing each of the top two bid in 5 categories, we came to a recommendation letter to provide to you guys. All in total, we came to a figure that was a little bit higher than what we anticipated, but with the food, when you bring out the food service portion of it, it falls in line with where we kind of had anticipated that budget to be. That project is slated to, if upon approval, would be a summertime project in hopes of being ready to go next August for the school year. So.
Questions on the exterior door cafeteria serving area renovation? So we will be sure to get some floor plan updates and that to share in the new year, so that we do a little video update on the ground, to kind of give the community perspective of what's going to change within the four walls of the cafeteria at the middle school to help, because we're feeding middle school kids now and not high school kids. So, plus just updating a lot of the equipment in that. So, Mr. Nelson, if you want to step up there, we've actually had this two-way radio project that Mr. Antoine mentioned in the committee report has really been a joint construction and technology effort. I feel like we've been working on this since 2018, and we've gone through a series of different contractors, but we have a resolution for the board tonight, and Mr. Nelson, why don't you give us a little update and then any questions the board might have.
Sure. Okay. As Mr. Antoine explained, we utilized RFQ, request for quote, for this project to utilize the MIDeal consortium pricing. That's the same MIDeal consortium that we used for the district copiers just recently. So we've used that purchasing vehicle in the past. So we went for the RFQ in mid-November, and MCA, Mobile Communications America, replied at the end of November to the quote. They started out with a survey district-wide to just tell us what would be necessary to create a district-wide radio network that would provide coverage from building to building on all the roads and routes that the buses go on. And so they laid out a network plan, which included 6 repeaters. They're antennas that will be placed strategically throughout the district to provide radio coverage between the buildings. In addition, we outlined the quantities, and so I think for the larger schools, the middle school and the high school, we chose 18 radios for those larger buildings, 12 for the smaller buildings, for a total of 148 radios. And these will be handheld radios with multiple channels, an emergency channel that can be used to just contact administrators only in the event of a communication, for example, from the superintendent just to the principals. In addition, there will be a main console radio, a voice over IP console at the transportation building, and both dispatchers will have, it's now a little bit different than what they use now. These are PC-based, software-based console stations that they'll use for the 2 dispatchers. And it also includes all the chargers, all the network equipment. This radio system is different also than the current legacy system in that it is all network-based. So the repeaters reside on the district network. They're backed up with UPSs. They do require network connectivity, so Mr. Antoine asked a question, in the event of a power failure or something where the UPS life runs out, that segment of the network radio system would be down until the power came back on. So it wouldn't take out the whole entire radio network, but if it was school-based, just the area that one repeater serves would be down until the power came back. The project also includes all labor, project management, programming, training, all of those things. And the numbers I have here were that the majority of it, 420-some thousand, would be paid for from the Section 97 grant, and would impact the general fund by about $54,000. And that is an action item too, so if you have any other questions, I can answer that.
So the only thing I want to add in is we're in the process, Bruce Township their board has agreed to allow us access to the tower at 36 Mile and Hip Road, which is going to get us up there in what I affectionately call the Upper Peninsula of Romeo, and get us up high enough to cover that northwest quadrant of the district where we have the greatest struggles. So we're working with legal counsel to draft that agreement, and we'll get that locked in. I think with lead times, Mr. Nelson, we're looking at late summer.
That's the current lead times on the radios themselves is 4 to 5 months, so that was another reason we came to the board tonight, and provided that timeline holds, we would do it in the summer.
questions? So just so the public knows, cell service, we have issues with cell service in our community, and we have issue with cell service in some of our buildings more than others in our community. So when we talk about the impact of this on school safety, this is going to allow us the ability to communicate district-wide in the event of an emergency, not dependent on cell service. In addition to, if you're in our school buildings during the day, you'll see, a dozen to 20 people with walkie-talkies, whether that's noon hour aides, playground, hall monitors, our security staff. So we'll have building, no interruption, in fact, higher functioning radios for within our buildings, but then we'll also be able to level up and have an administrative channel to communicate in the event of an emergency. So, any other questions? All right. All right, Mr. Storm, what's coming in January, and then we start the process all over again in February?
Yeah, just to give the board a brief update on what's on the horizon. We've worked several months on the Croswell renovation and addition project for the Early Childhood Center. Those bids are out on the street right now and due on the 12th of January. So after we open those, facilities meeting probably to meet with information on the 17th, and then hopefully the recommendation to the full board on the later January meeting once those are scheduled. The other Group 2 projects, looks like we're going to use the majority of 2023 to do the planning for those projects listed. The Amanda Moore and Washington Elementary additions that will be similar to Hampire and Indian Hills, the STEM and robotics facility at the Romeo Middle School site, the health and safety plumbing upgrades, and the varsity baseball and varsity softball fields at the high school campus. Any questions on any of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Storm. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Stobeck, always a pleasure. All right, academic services.
So Mrs. Riley alluded to our media selection process guide. We reviewed that with our curriculum subcommittee. She also mentioned we did have legal counsel, our policy law firm that produces our board policy, review that for us. So last board meeting, I think I mentioned, we had a group of parents, administrators, teachers. We had the librarian from the Romeo District Library, and we had our library assistants, myself, a couple principals. So it was it was a smaller committee, but it ran the gamut of roles within our district. And I had mentioned at the previous meeting, we were focusing on the standards and criteria used for media selection. So in this resolution for the process guide, you'll see that we became much more clear on age appropriateness. We became clear on some of the reputable resources to look for those book reviews. I want to remind you, we have not banned any books. I don't have Facebook, so apparently that's something on Facebook, that we've banned books. We have not. We did hold some books back until we could review this process. And once you approve the process, we will enact the updated process to review those books in question that were brought to us. The handling concerns, if a parent or a student or other member of our district community had a concern, we revisited that form. In the old document, it was about 7 pages. So we tried to collapse that and still get the essence of what the concern was from the concerned person. And we're going to make it electronic instead of having to write things out by paper, although there will be a paper one available if someone requests that. Within the updated process guide, we made sure we included an opt-out request form that a parent could select to opt their student out of an author or multiple titles in our media center if they had concerns about their child reading anything that
in our library. Let's see. Again, the process is we kept the essence of what the 2002 document had, but we did add some more meat to what that review committee's role was and recommendation and rationale that they would move up the ladder. We did put in the process guide to have 3 meetings a year. Some of the people that were in this committee to review the process were a little concerned that that's all we would be doing, because it's going to take some time for people to read the material and be informed. So we set 3 times a year as needed, or if it's needed. If it's not, we wouldn't hold it. And we also added an appeal process. After speaking with our legal counsel, he made it clear that we should have an appeal process, so the committee would make their recommendation and rationale to the superintendent. It would be then, the person would be informed of what that result was, and then we've included a process if they would like it to be reviewed by another eyeball. It's actually would be 3 members of the school board. So I know a lot now, more than I ever have, about law and legal implications, thank you, of this whole process. So if there are any questions from members of the board at this time, you have a new document that I copied, hard copy, only because our attorney just got me some new language, but it doesn't change the essence. He just made it legalese about the appeal.
So I remind the board, our policy remains unchanged on media selection. However, there were some edits to our administrative guidelines based on approval of the process that we would make. And, I just want to make sure that, thank you for those people that have been patient and allowed us to update a 20-year-old process that quite honestly was rather drawn out. And I think in this day and age, we can do this as needed, if needed, in a more efficient manner.
So again, the key for the audience is there has not been any books banned, despite what you might read or see on social media or who you might think is a credible source. This Board of Education has not banned any books. But we do have a robust process now to make sure that any questions about books can go through that robust process. Correct. And I think a real key in it is that parents have a role in their own child's reading accessibility. So it gives that parental piece to parents who have a concern for their own family, their own age group. So that's really good, and I appreciate all the work of the people and the subcommittee who went through everything and sent it to the rest of us. Any other questions or comments? All right.
I would just add, as a former librarian, I did that for 7 years at middle school, and I'm pleased with the process that's in place. I do think it gives parents who have a concern an out, but it also doesn't. It puts in process enough, I think, thought and enough guidelines that that every parent essentially has a choice, that there's going to be a lot of materials in the library, and you can opt out your child, but you can't immediately take away from everybody else's child. And there's a process in place to review materials, and it's based on good sources of review material for young adult literature, and I'm pleased with it.
Just some more updates. I'm available if you have any questions about the new course proposals that we're bringing forward for the high school. There are 3 new courses and then just some name changes because the high school, believe it or not, is getting ready to get their documents ready for scheduling for next school year. We'd like to, make sure these resolutions are approved so they can begin that process in the first of the year. But any questions about the course proposals, I'm ready to answer. Yes, Mrs. Barrows.
It's on the new course, the World Studies for Africa. And so I was reviewing the form and everything, the summary on that. I guess my concern is, just because it's been out and about in the news and across the country, are there any aspects of the critical race theory?
No.
In any of the materials that are
No.
going to be presented? Anything on the instruction part?
No.
By the teacher?
So they already teach, they teach a World Studies East class, which focuses in on all of the countries in the East. So it's a lot to try to cover comprehensively. So the Social Studies Department talked about splitting it. So you'd have a World Studies Asia opportunity for students and a World Studies Africa. So the material that they will be using does not follow any critical race theory.
Because it caught my eye that in the summary it says the course would break stereotypes while providing students with an increased diversity in social studies. So I just, if this, everything is,
It's prudent upon us as a public school to offer students a view of more than the United States history and really think globally. And there are many different types of countries on the continent of Africa that it's important to understand the geography and the history and what's happening currently in some of the countries on the continent of Africa.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Just an FYI, because I don't know that we'll have an informational update before, our winter testing window for K-8, actually I think K-10 for NWEA begins on January 9th. So we are excited about that, to see what kind of growth our students have had since the fall testing window. Rob is here to update you. In the curriculum subcommittee, we talked to them about a K-5 ELA pilot, and we have an update.
Thank you. So one last piece from us tonight is related just to that. Over the course of the last year, building principals, teachers, myself at the elementary level have come to the conclusion that it's time to look at new ELA materials. The current materials that we are using are going on 8 years old and aren't easily updated. And so what we've done, we've put a committee together made up of myself, Jennifer, administrators, teachers, literacy support specialist, and our literacy coach to vet some programs. We used edreports.org as our base to try and identify what we thought were quality programs to take a look at. Zeroed in on 3 programs, had vendors come in, and they each had about 55 minutes to do a presentation for us to kind of walk us through how their program would benefit us. We were hoping to get to 2 of the 3 programs that we could pilot, but we really only found that there was one that was worth our time, and so, in resources, because pilots aren't free anymore. And so what we've done is we have selected a program. I'll be working with elementary principals tomorrow to put together pilot teams represented from all of our buildings, and then we'll roll the balls out there, have a pilot for a couple months, and then come back to you with an update in the spring. So, any questions on that? Thank you.
So to wrap up my report, just checking in on strategic planning. The last month has really been information gathering. So our next meeting of the steering committee, it's actually our 4th meeting of the steering committee is tomorrow. And we have a lot of work to do to take the input from the focus groups and the survey, and we'll break, the full steering committee will break into 3 focus area work groups and really dig into taking all that feedback and making sure we have solid goals to put into the final draft plan. The final meeting of the steering committee is January 10th, and we hope to get consensus from the steering committee on our draft plan, and then we would bring that to the board with a presentation and approval, hopefully at that second January meeting, once we get that date set at the organizational meeting on January 9th. So in terms of the data gathering we've been through in the last month, we conducted 15 focus groups that had 187 participants, and that brought really healthy feedback. Mr. Liepa, our consultant, had members of those focus groups sitting in table groups, and each table group provided their own feedback sheet, and he synthesized that into a report for the steering committee. We've taken the opportunity, just because we've had directors, council, and administrative leadership and cabinet meetings since the data has come in, to just check in and do an update on where the process is at with those factions of our leadership team. I want to thank the 187 staff members and parents who participated in our focus groups, and we had just over 1,400 completions of the steering committee survey. So all that data over the course of the next few weeks will be synthesized to make sure we have a solid set of focus areas. I think we're at an updated mission, vision, and some organizational values that will be part of what we present to the board in January. So happy to see this process come to a close. We've been talking about this for a few years and have really been knee-deep in it since bringing Mr. Liepa on in August. So I don't know if there's anything else from any of the board members who sit on the steering committee, probably more after tomorrow. So Dr. Demas, Mrs. Riley? No? Okay. All right. That is all for my report for tonight.
All right. I'll go for that. We move on to public comment. The first one I have is Ms. McLeod. And you'll have 3 minutes. So if you start to get towards the end, I'll kind of just give you a...
Okay, thank you. There are so many things that make me uncomfortable as a student at Romeo High School. The passive-aggressive comments I endure, the thinly veiled racist remarks being passed as political point of view. But in this country, people get freedom to think, say, and read pretty much whatever they want. That doesn't always mean that these liberties come without consequence, but they are available to us. Now, I could go sit with Mr. Oswald every day and read him my list of grievances. I could review with him books in the library that are factually inaccurate, perpetuate stereotypes, and even use the N-word over and over and implore him to remove them. But even as a 17-year-old, I understand the importance of never unilaterally making decision to limit books simply because they make me uncomfortable. In the Romeo Library, there's a book titled Mice and Men. Now, from the lens of many people in this room, it might be considered one of the greats. There's another book called Gone with the Wind, and it's likely a favorite of many people in this room as well. I hate both of them. I hate the way people of color are portrayed and treated. I hate that the books are written from the lens of a white man telling the stories of enslaved and indentured blacks. I hate that the N-word is used and the black housemaid is written as a shrieking idiot. I hate that the stories are extremely limited in sharing the true experience of black characters, but my opinion alone has no place in deciding what literature should be available in the school. It's important that the book challenge policy is followed and one person can't dictate which books are removed from the shelves. Parents should not have the authority to ban books, and neither should I. I'm asking the school board to enforce the process for any literary censorship. No book should be banned from Romeo High School without rigorous conversation. Literature will always make someone feel uncomfortable, and I say if a book makes you uncomfortable, don't check it out of the library. But just like I'm not making my uncomfortableness your problem, don't make yours mine. Thank you.
Next, we have Ava Sanborn.
Hello, my name's Ava Sanborn. I'm a senior at Romeo. I'm reading this letter on behalf of a fellow student who didn't feel safe sharing his story in person. Let me give you some backstory. My life has not always been easy here in Romeo Community Schools. I moved here in 7th grade, and it's been a living hell for me ever since I stepped foot on school grounds. I came from L'Anse Creuse Public Schools to Romeo Community Schools, and it was a huge shock for me socially. I come from a school full of diversity, acceptance of all communities, and a large population of students, to a small conservative town not diverse at all. Very hateful towards minorities, with a very small student population. My first impression of the students and staff here at RHS was horrific. As my 7th grade self sat down to sit at a table for lunch for the first time, I was told to move my ass faggot. Those were the first words ever spoken to me by a student at RCS, and I will never forget them because it set the scene for the rest of my experience here. I am a transgender male, and it has been a secret kept in my family ever since I moved here. We didn't want me to get bullied even more than I had already been, and we knew that if anybody found out, I would be in for a lot of hate. Hiding my identity was mentally draining and led me to spiraling into a deep depression. Around the same time as my lowest low, I was outed to the entire school by someone who I thought was my friend. It hurt me deeply that I had zero control over when people knew, who knew, and how people found out. That year was traumatic for me. I was bullied every single day, pushed against lockers, called numerous slurs such as tranny and faggot, and was verbally degraded by my peers. That continued throughout middle school and 9th grade. In 10th grade, the bullying didn't just stay at school anymore. The bullying migrated to my social media accounts and to my home. My house and my car got egged and hit by smoothies. It was reported to the school, and nothing was done. My 11th and 12th grade years have been the worst years ever. My dead name has been written by bullies on numerous personal items of mine, many of which had to be thrown away due to damage. Again, we reported it to the school, nothing was done about it. The school claims that the students involved had been talked to, but the harassment continues. I continue to report everything, and nothing has been done about it. I have received 3 candygrams with horrible messages on them. The school was alerted, nothing was done. I attempted suicide 3 times throughout the years, and it is because the school has made me feel hopeless. Since the rest of the school has been a horrible place for me, I found peace in the library. I found LGBTQ+ books in our school library, and having them there made me feel represented and seen. One of the books addressed bullying and harassment in schools and how to cope with it. It helped me so much. Reading books about people like me going through the same things made me feel a little better. It gave me a little hope. That hope has been ripped from my hands by the very people who I have confided in and reported to for many years about what I have been put through due to my identity. The only bit of hope I had, gone. The only thing I had, gone. The bullying continues. The school continues to turn their heads to this harassment and now this. Why were they taken away? They were not violent. They were not overly sexual. They were not different than any other book in our library except for the fact that they had LGBTQ+ characters and or topics. Are you going to burn these books like they did in Fahrenheit 451 or the Holocaust? Are you going to push us into a closet and hide us away forever? What did we do wrong? If being in the LGBTQ+ community was a choice, none of us would be a part of it. Who would choose to be hated, harassed, hidden, and killed just for who they are? Nobody. This is why kids like me are dying. Don't kill us. Thank you.
Thank you. These are going to be given to the administration too, so they'll reach out to you for follow-up. Moving on to the regular meeting action items. Can I have a motion for Resolution 68, which is our personnel update?
So moved.
Moved by Barrows, supported by Connor. Are there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I have Facilities Resolution Number 87, which is the Cafeteria Service Project. Spoke about today, $1.5 million. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Technology Resolution 88, which is the two-way radio network project, mostly coming out of safety funds, remaining coming out of general fund.
Motion.
Moved and supported, Antoine and Connor. Questions or concerns?
No.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is the Employee Service Resolution 89, which is the reclassification proposal of a few positions.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved by Riley, supported by Connor. I think he was first. Questions or concerns on this one? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is Employee Services Resolution 90, which is the RASPA Letter of Agreement.
So move.
Support.
Moved by Demus, supported by Barrows. This is the one updating the letter of agreement to their contract. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is the Board of Education Resolution 91, which is the superintendent's evaluation, giving them a highly effective rating, and an amendment to the contract for a contract extension.
So moved.
Moved by Riley,
Support.
support by Demus. Questions or concerns?
Just real quick, because we kind of discussed about the superintendent responding to maybe any of our concerns that we brought up during the evaluation, and potentially, especially for extending his contract, perhaps some of his long-term plans that he has for the district. Is that something?
Yes. So if you kind of remember the process, at the December meeting is when we approved the ranking and the evaluation.
Right.
For the audience, we met twice. Also, everyone gave written response to me. I formulate that, put it back out to the board, and that's where we give him some of our strengths
Right.
and weaknesses, and that comes out in January.
Okay.
Again, the evaluation process is a approved evaluation tool that we use, and then we provide feedback to the superintendent for leadership priorities. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Just want to state, we are very pleased with Dr. Robinson's work here in the district. He's been a great superintendent, navigated COVID very well. We have a lot going on, as you can see, a lot of bond progress, and so we're just excited for the future, and we're glad to have him part of our team. Next is our Academic Service Resolution number 92, which is the Media Selection Utilization and Process Guide that was just outlined.
So moved.
Moved by Riley. Support by Connor. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is Academic Service Resolution 93, which is the RHS new course, AP Microeconomics.
So
Can I-
moved.
Support.
Moved by Barrows, supported by Demus. Questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Academic Resolution 94, which is the RHS new course, World Studies Africa. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Demus, support by Connor. Questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Academic Services Resolution 95, which is the RHS new course, Medical Terminology. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Riley,
Support.
support by Barrows. Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is the Academic Services Resolution 96, which is some RHS course name changes. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Young,
Support by Connor.
support by Connor. Questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Business Services Resolution 97, which is our summer tax levy. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Young, supported by Antoine. Any questions? This allows us to collect our school rate on our summer tax. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Business Services Resolution number 98, which is the fiscal year 23 budget amendment.
So moved.
Moved by Barrows, supported by Connor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board discussion for the good of the district?
Yeah, I would just like to publicly thank my two colleagues who are departing from the board. It saddens me to see them leave after all these years, and I want to thank them for their professionalism, their dedication, and the contributions that they have made to this district. They are certainly value added, and God bless you, both of you.
think so, thank you.
I was also going to add, it's been a pleasure, and it's not easy being a public servant. We're not paid, this is not our day job, so, you know, it takes a lot to do the homework, to study, to, hopefully you guys even got a taste of it tonight, how many subcommittee meetings and work in between public board meetings that we do, and both of these two have served on the board during a lot of time of change and progress for Romeo, so I hope you guys feel very proud of yourselves for the legacy that you'll be leaving, and the work that was done under your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say real quick, too, I just wanted to thank my family and friends for their support during the past 6 years, and then also to the members of the community that voted for me, both in 2016 and 2022. So thank you for the opportunity to have served the district as a board member. So thank you.
And I would just say that, you know, change is a little bit scary at times, and I've had people have reached out to me, you know, just like I said, change, not about anybody in particular, but just a little bit concerned about change. So I would just say to everybody what I've said to them. You've got an outstanding board, you have outstanding leadership. Dr. Robinson, and he's brought on Mr. Storm, Mr. Murray recently. Mrs. McFarland has been here for a long time. She does a great job. Ms. Butler, Ms. Lasky, Mr. Nelson. And it's bad to name people because you might forget somebody, but you're in good hands, and I'm confident that the board will continue to do good work and continue to move forward. There's a lot of people that are real happy with what's going on in Romeo and with the academies and the move to the academies, you know, down at the lower levels. And I think you're going to see neighboring districts jumping on our, riding our, what do you call it? Tail feather's not the right word, but anyway, so I'll jump on the bandwagon. Yes, so anyway, it's been an honor. Thank you, and thanks to everybody here.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Connor?
I went to the monthly MISD meeting. It was at Lance Cruz. It was very informative. They had some officers there, like if students missed too many days and different things and what they did. And it had a lot of positive things, you know, good reinforcements to help the families and whoever needs help. That was very informative. And I want to thank Joe and Kim for doing a great job. You've always done real good on all the committees, and we're going to miss you.
All right. Last is public comment, and I did get one more. Amy Corbin?
Hi, it's been a while. I'm Amy Corbin. I have 2 kids at the high school. I've been a mom for 29 years. So in 2002, it was a lot different. Things have changed. Some of us parents are asking, maybe instead of opting out of certain books, people could opt in, because there's a lot of parents that don't even know what's in the libraries right now. And while we try to stay informed in everything, it's very hard being a parent, and it's even harder now than it was 29 years ago. Also, there should be, the bullying policy needs to be looked into. There should be no bullying in high schools. I had a daughter that was bullied. I had to switch schools. I know what this is like, so maybe that could be addressed too, is this bullying policy. But there are these books in the library right now, well, being set aside, and they do have incest, they have violent sex, and they support pedophilia. And no kid should be reading about that. All kids should feel safe. And for those to make anyone feel safe, I just don't get it as a parent. And that's really it. It was short and sweet today. Todd, I just want to give you this. I didn't have enough copies for everyone, but I mean, you can see that there is incest and pedophilia right in there. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one more is coming.
Oh. All right. Oops.
Do you want me to say it?
Jamie?
Jamie Bauer Lucrechio.
Jamie, I didn't even get to the last part. I just took my reading glasses off, so.
Blame is him. But so I'm Jamie Bauer Lucrechio, and my daughter attends the middle school. She's a 7th grader. And I will start out, this has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with any of that. This has to do with sexual content, okay? So this is how I want to weigh in on this. The past couple months, I've seen a great concern from parents in regards to available books of literature being read by our children. During the October meeting, a parent stood right here and read a passage from Oryx and Crake, I think that's how you pronounce it, by Margaret Atwood. I know you know the book. While listening to this parent read some content, I was actually shocked that a book with such disturbing, descriptive content would be included in our kids' education. Last month, a student gave a very well-crafted, articulated, defending response. Rest assured, her rebuttal did not sit well with me. I am shocked that this topic of young minds, the minds of minors, being able to read in graphic detail pedophilia in a book is even a debated topic of discussion. This book and books like these seem more fitting for college-level curriculums. Yet, descriptive content of naked children pleasing an adult male is beyond disturbing to those with a moral compass. Public schools can find other books more suited for minors to read, to get a point across, or to have an educated discussion. I will say if this book or any book that contains such content is required by my daughter, which I now have learned today, that I guess we can opt in or opt out, whatever you guys decide, I will not be allowing my daughter to read this. Parents are researching, parents are taking notice. That's why we are raising this concern all across the country. This should be a telling sign that certain material is not appropriate for those under the age of 18. I have learned that this 12-year book challenge protocol is being currently worked on, as has been worked on, so I'm happy to hear the update. Child porn, pedophilia, rape, and other inappropriate sexual content where a minor can paint a vivid picture in their minds through words is completely unacceptable on all levels. The Motion Picture Association has ratings. These ratings inform parents and people about the content of a movie or a show. Books considered or already are in our schools should follow the same protocols. If a books like the one that has been talked about, Oryx and Crate, were made into a movie, would you allow that movie to be shown to students here in Romeo? If it was taking that child pornography scene and put that in an actual vivid where they can actually see it on the screen, would that be appropriate for our kids to actually see that? It's no different than having that visually put through words and put into a child's mind. So that movie would be rated R or M for maturity, adults only.
I was going to say, you're at 3 minutes.
Yeah, so basically that's my whole thing. Sexual content does not need to be involved in these schools. You have a right. You are in these positions to protect our kids from sexual content that are for adults only, and that includes child pedophilia.
Thank you. We have Emily.
Good evening. As you can tell, I didn't plan to speak, so I don't have anything, so it's going to be a little scattered. I'm going to say a few things related to the books and some other things. Number one, I want to make a request that I've requested a few times in the last year, that you live stream the board meetings. This is the first board meeting I've been able to come to because of my job in over a year, and it's going to get the same way in the new year. I'm just downtime a little bit. Rochester Community Schools live streams their board meetings. There are so many parents that can't get childcare. There are single parents. There are parents that work night shifts. There are parents that have ill children at home. I know the new board members talk about transparency, so this seems like something we could have common ground on, that more parents would be able to, it's not live streamed though. It usually takes 3 or 4 days for it to get up, and in that time, as you know, with social media, rumors often come about, so we could really cut that. That's my first thing. The second thing is I'm going to respond, obviously, to some of the people we hear talking about the books tonight. Number one, I want to clarify something. The books were pulled from the library at the high school, and you did have students try to check them out, and they were denied that. That is a shadow ban. That is a definition. That is something very mature. That is something that's called a shadow ban. They were denied that they're 18 years old. They could go buy an AR-15, but they couldn't check out a book at the high school. So that is a shadow ban. I think you need to make clear to us, and maybe you can answer it tonight, with more parents coming forward and challenging books, are you going to pull them preemptively because somebody says it's inappropriate, or are you going to leave them on the shelves until they've gone through the review process? So you can let us know that tonight. Second thing, I would like to request the Bible is removed from the shelves because it makes very clear that there's gang rape in the Bible, there is incest in the Bible. To quote the parent that spoke in September, we don't want to normalize incest or gang rape. So I'm going to request tonight that the Bible is pulled from the shelves. Thank you very much.
Miller, Mrs.
Yes.
Miller. First name?
Deborah?
Deborah Miller.
Yep, and my kids are new to the district, and I just want to say that so far, we've been very pleased, very happy. I appreciate the work you do. I have also volunteered in many positions, and I understand what it takes to get up here. I've spoken at various school board meetings. For me, it's not, this isn't about banning books. I'm just going to give some statistics, some things that are talked about that we just don't always consider. Pornography is something that may strengthen attitudes supportive of sexual violence and violence against women. The best approach for parents and caregivers and teachers responding to a child's exposure to pornography is to encourage open communication, discussion, and critical thinking. Is that something that the board wants the administrators and staff of this school to take on when they allow children to be exposed to pornography in a school library? In the absence of other information, pornography can be a main source of a young person's sex ed. So for someone who doesn't have a home structure where they're talking about sexual content, this is where they're learning it, and this is all they have the exposure to. The use of pornography by adolescents is associated with stronger permissive sexual attitudes, which I don't think any child in the middle school or high school needs to be encouraged. Statistics show exposure to pornography can increase the likelihood of earlier first-time sexual experiences. Adolescent pornography is used with stronger beliefs in gender stereotypes. So if we're talking about not having stereotypes, we probably don't need to expose them to violent sexual content. Males exposed to pornography are more likely to view women as sex objects. Adolescents who consume violent pornography were 6 times more likely to be sexually aggressive compared to kids not exposed. Some of the books that have no place in our school libraries have graphic sexual scenes described in full detail, including experiences of rape, pedophilia, and incest. That's a fact. And I will be here reading those excerpts if I have to. There are also books that instruct children how to perform different sex acts and encourage them to go online and find people to hook up with. How does having books like this in school help students achieve academic success? And that is the defining question. The schools now, especially after COVID, have kids who are so behind, and every single thing we do should be helping our children reach academic success. So, for parents who don't know, the Follett website gives access to book titles, and there are plenty of books that I don't know if they're in the library or not, and I hope they're not. But if they become available, opting out is not the choice. Not having, because I can opt out for my kid, but his friend can go get this and read it at the lunch table. So there are appropriate ways to keep these books in the right hands. And I agree with the other parent who spoke, and I know my 3 minutes is up. 18 and older is how my child could go get a pornographic magazine, go see a mature audience-rated movie, and that is how they should be exposed to content, period. And no school should override a parent's ability to decide that.
So I'm just gonna, public comment is definitely open to everybody, but if you are planning to speak, if you could go over to that table, because otherwise it's just every time someone comes up, then we think of something else we want to say. So if you're planning to speak, just flag me down now so I can know how many more we have. All right, thank you very much. Oh, goodness, I'm gonna need you can read that? Oh, sorry. This part's super small.
Sarah Stiegler, sorry. No
Yeah.
worries. I just wanted to read a little excerpt from Appendix B of the previous book banning policy, just because I think it's very relevant to everything that's been said tonight and something that's good for all of us to keep in mind.
Can I just, you're reading an excerpt of a book banning policy?
No,
Because we
I'm-
didn't have.
No, I'm
Okay.
reading an excerpt of the previous media review policy that was developed and signed into
I just
in
wanna be
2002.
clear.
Sorry, I did, that was a misspeak on my part.
All right, 3
Just
minutes,
because I
all
think it's relevant. The right to read, like all rights guaranteed or implied within our constitutional tradition, can be used wisely or foolishly. In many ways, education is an effort to improve the quality choices open to all students. But to deny the freedom of choice in fear that it may be unwisely used is to destroy the freedom itself. For this reason, we respect the right of individuals to be selective in their own reading. But for the same reason, we oppose efforts of individuals or groups to limit the freedom of choice to others or to impose their own standards or tastes upon the community at large. The right of any individual is not just to read, but to read whatever he or she wants to read is basic to democratic society. This right is based on an assumption that the educated possess judgment and understanding and can be trusted with the determination of their own actions. In selecting books for reading by young people, English teachers consider the contribution which each work make to, which each work may make to the education of the reader, its aesthetic value, its honesty, its readability for a particular group of students, and its appeal to adolescents. American citizens who care about the improvement of education are urged to join students, teachers, librarians, administrators, Board of Education, and professional and scholarly organizations in support of the student's right to read. Only widespread and informed support in every community can assure that enough citizens are interested in the development and maintenance of a superior school system to guarantee its achievement. Malicious gossip, ignorant rumors, and deceptive letters to the editor will not be circulated without challenging and correction. Newspapers will be convinced that the public sincerely desires objective school news reporting, free from slanting or editorial comment which destroys confidence, and in support for schools. The community will not permit its resources and energies to be dissipated. That's it. Sorry.
Obviously, the role of the board is policy and procedure, so hopefully, if we can all just leave here today with our friends and neighbors and know that, hearty discussion is always great. There are two sides to every coin, and Romeo, the part that makes us unique is clearly this is hitting some society attention, some national attention, social media attention, and we got to work relooking at our practice, relooking at the process, bringing people in the room. So I'm hopeful that everybody here, no matter which side of the coin you're on, you're going to sit back and let the process get into play first before we worry about things that may or may not even happen. Know that there are options for parents as well. So first we have to take care of ourselves in our own home, and then we can worry about things outside of that. So let's just trust the process a little bit, see how it works, know that this board and future board members are going to come together in a consensus-building action to do what's right by kids, to make sure that learning is at the forefront. So if we can just all leave here with that, knowing it's not a us, them, he, they, whatever situation, this is a topic that is going to have differing opinions. So that's the beauty of democracy. So with that, I'm going to ask our board, we're going to go into closed session for client-attorney privilege. We're not coming out and making any decisions. When we do come out, we'll just take action to adjourn. So can I have a motion to go into closed session? Moved by Demas.
Support.
Support by Barrows. Can I have roll call?
Mr. Antoine is yes. Ms. Bonick?
Yes.
Ms. Barrows?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Dr. Demas?
Yes.
Ms. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.